Good evening. This is the 37th time I've spoken to you from this office, where so many decisions have been made that shape the history of this nation. Each time I have done so to discuss with you some matter that I believed affected the national interest. In all the decisions I have made in my public life, I've always tried to do what was best for the nation. Throughout the long and difficult period of Watergate, I have felt it was my duty to preserve, to make every possible effort to complete the term of office in which you elected me. In the past few days, however, it has become more evident to me that I no longer have a strong enough political base in Congress to justify continuing that effort. As long as there was such a base, I felt strongly that it was necessary to see the constitutional process through to its conclusion. That to do otherwise would be unfaithful to the spirit of that deliberately difficult process and a dangerously destabilizing precedent for the future. But with the disappearance of this base, I now believe that the constitutional process has been served, and there is no longer a need for the process to be prolonged. I would have preferred to carry through the finish the personal agony it would have involved, and my family unanimously urged me to do so. But the interest of the nation must always come before any personal considerations. From the discussions I've had with Congress and other leaders, I have concluded that because of the Watergate matter, I might not have the support of the Congress that I would consider necessary to back the very difficult decisions and carry out the duties of this office, in the way and the interest of the nation would require. I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body. But as president, I must put the interest of America first, and America needs a full-time president and a full-time Congress, particularly at this time with problems we face at home and abroad. To continue to fight through the months ahead for my personal vindication would almost totally absorb the time and attention of both the President and the Congress in a period where our entire focus should be on the great issues of peace abroad and prosperity without inflation at home. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at the hour in this office. As I recall the high hopes for America which we began this second term, I feel a great sadness that I will not be here in this office working on your behalf to achieve those hopes in the next 2.5 years. But in turning over directions to the government to Vice President Ford, I know, as I told the nation when I was nominated for this office 10 months ago, that the leadership of America will be in good hands. In passing this office to Vice President, I also do with a profound sense of the weight of responsibility that will fall on his shoulders tomorrow, and therefore of the understanding, the patience, the cooperation he will need from all Americans. As he assumes that responsibility, he will deserve the help and support of all of us. As we look to the future, the first essential is to begin healing the wounds of this nation, to put the bitterness and divisions of the recent past behind us, and to discover those shared ideas that lie at the heart of our strength and unity as great and as free people. By taking this action, I hope that I will have hazarded the start of the process of healing which is so desperately needed in America. I regret deeply any injuries that I may have done in the course of this event that led to this decision. I would say only that if some of my judgments were wrong, and some were wrong, they were made in what I believed at that time of the best interest of this nation. To those who have stood with me during these past difficult months, to my family, to my friends, to many others who joined in supporting my case because they believed it was right, I will be eternally grateful for your support. Those who have not felt able to give me your support, let me say, I leave with no bitterness toward those who have opposed me, because of all of us, in the final analysis, have been concerned with the good of the country, however our judgment might differ. So let us all join together in affirming that common commitment and in helping our new president succeed for the benefit of all Americans. I shall leave this office with regret of not completing my term, with gratitude for the privilege of serving as your president for the past 5.5 years. It has been a momentous time in the history of our nation and the world. They have been a time of achievement in which we can all be proud, achievements that represent the shared effort to the administration, the Congress, and the people. But the challenges ahead are equally great, and they too will require the support and the effort of the Congress and the people working in cooperation with the new administration. We have ended America's longest war, but in the work of securing a lasting peace in the world, the goals ahead are even more far-reaching and more difficult. We must complete a structure of peace so that, if will be said for this generation, our generation of Americans, by the people of all nations, not only that we ended one war, but that we prevented future wars. We have unlocked the doors that for a quarter of a century stood between the United States and the People's Republic of China. We must now ensure that that 1/4 of the world's population who live in the People's Republic of China will be and remain not our enemies but our friends. In the middle of 1 million people in the Arab countries, many of whom have considered us their enemy for the nearly 20 years, now look at us as their friends. We must continue to build on that friendship so that the peace can settle at last over the Middle East, and so that the cradle of civilization will not become its grave. Together with the Soviet Union, we have made the crucial breakthroughs that have begun the process of limiting nuclear arms. But we must set our goals not to just limiting, but reducing and finally destroying these terrible weapons, so that they cannot destroy civilization, and that the threat of nuclear war will no longer hang over the world and its people. We have opened the new relation with the Soviet Union. We must continue to develop and expand that new relationship so that the two strongest nations of the world will live forever in cooperation rather than confrontation. Around the world, in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, and in the Middle East, there are millions of people who live in terrible poverty, even starvation. We must keep as our goal turning away from production for war and expanding productivity for peace, so that people everywhere on this earth can at last look forward to their children's time, if not is in our time, to having the necessities for a decent life. Here in America, we are fortunate that most of our people have not only the blessings of liberty, but also the means to live full and good, and by the world's standards, even abundant lives. We must press on, however, toward a goal of not only more and better jobs, but a full opportunity for every American, and of what we are striving so hard right now to achieve, prosperity without inflation. For more than a quarter of a century in public life, I have shared in the turbulent history of this era. I have fought for what I believed in. I have tried to do the best of my ability to discharge those duties and meet those responsibilities that were entrusted to me. Sometimes I have succeeded and sometimes I have failed, but I always have taken heart from what Theodore Roosevelt once said about the man in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, because there is not effort without error and shortcomings, but who does actually strive to do the deed, who knows the great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthful case, who at the best knows in the end of the triumphs of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. I plead to you tonight that as long as I have the breath of my life in my body, I shall continue in that spirit. I shall continue to work for the great cause to which I have been dedicated throughout my years as a congressman, a senator, a vice president, and a president. The cause of peace not just for America, but among all nations, prosperity, justice, and opportunity for all of our people. There is one cause above all to which I have been devoted, and to which I shall always be devoted for as long as I live. Very best in all the days since to be true to that pledge. As a result of these efforts, I am confident that the world is a safer place today, not only for the people of America, but for the people of all nations, and that all of our children have a better chance than before of living in peace rather than dying in war. This, more than anything, is what I hoped to achieve when I sought the presidency. This, more than anything, is what I hope to be the legacy to you, to our country, as I leave the presidency. To have served in this office is to have felt a very personal sense of kinship with each and every American. In leaving, I do so with this prayer: may God's grace be with you in all the days ahead. So weird, like, I'm tripping. Okay, so I was never a quitter. Okay, are you kidding me? I was never, okay. These years have been a momentous time, these years have been a momentous time, okay, these years we prevented future wars, Nixon, this is an interview, so this is an interview just to simply understand your point of view and just to see what happened. The information's all out there, so there's nothing really left out. These were 7 press statements that you released, so do you mind reading them for us? Yeah, okay. So 1, I had no prior knowledge of the Watergate operation. 2, I took no part in, nor was I aware of any efforts that may have been made to cover up Watergate. 3, at no time did I authorize any offer of executive clemency to the Watergate defendants, nor did I know of any such offer. 4, I did not know until the time of my own investigation of any effort to provide the Watergate defendants with funds. 5, at no time did I attempt or did I authorize others to attempt to implicate the CIA in the Watergate matter. 6, it was not until the time of my own investigation that I learned of the break-ins at the office of Mr. Ezelberg's psychiatrist, and I specifically authorized the furnishing of this information to Judge Burney, authorized nor encouraged subordinates to engage in illegal or improper campaign tactics. On June 17, 1972, 5 men, including a salaried security coordinator for your re-election committee, were arrested for breaking into and illegally wiretapping the Democratic National Committee headquarters in the Washington, D.C. Watergate complex. Soon after, 2 other former White House aides were implicated in the break-in, but your administration denied any involvement. Later that year, reporters Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward of the Washington Post discovered a higher echelon conspiracy surrounding the incident, and a political scandal of unprecedented magnitude erupted. So that all makes sense, right? Okay, just making sure. In May 1973, a little under a year, the Senate Select Committee on Presidential Campaign Activities began televised proceedings on the rapidly escalating Watergate affair. During the Senate hearings, former White House legal counsel John Dean testified that the Watergate break-in had been approved by former Attorney General John Mitchell with the knowledge of White House advisor John Etchenham and H.R. Hubman, and that you had been aware of the cover-up. Meanwhile, Watergate prosecutor Cox and his staff began to uncover widespread evidence of political espionage by your re-election committee, illegal wiretapping of thousands of citizens by the administration, and contributions to the Republican Party in return for political favors. In July, the existence of what were to be called the Watergate tapes, official recordings of White House conversations between you and your staff, was revealed during the Senate hearings. Cox submitted these tapes, and after 3 months of delay, you agreed to send summaries of the recordings. Cox rejected the summaries, and you fired him. His successor, as special prosecutor, reveled incidents against several high-ranking officials. You were duly convicted. Public confidence in the president rapidly waned, and by the end of July 1974, the House of Judiciary Committee had adopted 3 articles of impeachment against you. Obstruction of justice, abuse of presidential powers, and hindrance of the impeachment process. Right? You're all familiar with those. Okay. On July 30th, from pressure from the Supreme Court, you finally released the Watergate tapes. On August 5th, transcripts of the recordings were released, including a segment in which you were heard instructing Hellman to order the FBI to halt the Watergate investigation. 3 days later, you announced your resignation. Right? You're familiar with those, okay? Wait.
I'd like a little bit.
Wait. Are we done? This is an interview, though. Mr. Are we done? I would like a lower pen. That makes no sense.
No,
this
this
is
doesn't
an
matter.
interview, please.
Read
No,
my memory.
You're free to leave. You
Well, I was
volunteered to
reporting.
be here. That's up to you. Oh, okay. My bad.